It might not look like much, but this patch of land behind this fence in Cardiff tells us something about a huge global debate.
Data centres.
Data centres.
Data centre.
Data centres.
Data centres.
What you see behind me is just a car park, but it could soon be a data centre. To be more specific, what's going on behind that fence is a park and ride, and it's funded by the local health board. It takes patients, staff, visitors to Wales's largest hospital, the Heath. You might be wondering why I'm speaking to you from the wrong side of the fence. Now, we wanted to get in and show you a little bit more of this site, but Cardiff Council have said no. It's not the most glamorous piece of infrastructure, but it is important because we know that people use it. A plan has been submitted by developers to turn more than 900 of these spaces into a data centre campus. And as you might expect, it's caused quite the debate.
Let us in! Let us in!
It's not on your doorstep, so what do you want us to do?
Ditch the data centre, save the park and ride!
The park and ride is in Llanrumney, on the outskirts of our capital here in Wales. And it's kind of a lightning rod for the backlash that we're seeing across the globe when it comes to data centres. From Cardiff to Brick Lane to Georgia in the US, communities are confronting the same questions. What does the data centre boom look like when it physically arrives on your doorstep? And are we willing to tolerate it? Our biggest hospital is the University Hospital of Wales, but we call it the Heath. Now, it employs thousands of people, and in a typical year, they treat thousands of patients too across the hospital. It's also a teaching hospital and home to one of the largest medical schools in the UK. Now, just down the road is Cardiff East Park and Ride, the site of the proposed data centre campus. I've been reaching out to people from the area to get a feel for how locals are reacting to the proposals.
I'm Lizzie, I'm one of the local residents for the Ditch the Data Centre, Save the Park and Ride campaign. I'm based in Rumney. I've got concerns over the planning application for the data centre due to the impacts on local residents, the noise pollution, air pollution, water pollution, the massive use of electricity from the data centre itself, the use of water and how that impacts the local wildlife, and also the loss of the park and ride, which is a vital service.
The concerns being raised by campaigners like Lizzie in Cardiff speak to a global debate. People do have questions about how much pressure these data centres might put on our key resources like water and energy. But the conversation is complicated because every data centre is different in scale, size and in power. Now, here in Cardiff, we've got a statement from Curtis Hall Limited, the company behind the plans in Llanrumney, and they actually say that their data centre will not put any strain on the energy grid or water infrastructure. They add that the water and drainage requirements were actually developed in consultation with Dŵr Cymru Welsh Water. And they've also looked at noise in a detailed assessment, they say, adding that there will not be an adverse effect on the local residents, the homes near the potential data centre. But it's not just the environment that people are concerned about here in Cardiff. They're also concerned about the loss of the bus service itself.
The hospital park and ride is a vital service. Everyone's told me that it's both essential and a lifesaver for them. It still seems that local people are unaware of the data centre and the implications for them. We aren't against the benefits for Cardiff for the economic side of things, but it has to be in an environmental and sustainable way. We want the economic benefits to be for the local people and not for global companies.
OK, I've been reading the planning documents. The proposal was submitted by Curtis Hall Limited. Now, they have recognised concerns raised about access to the hospital, but they say that actually the health board is best placed to address those concerns. They say that the data centre could create up to 125 new jobs. However, this does depend on who eventually runs the facility. They've also added that the project would deliver new transport infrastructure, including a new bridge, a link road for pedestrians and cyclists, plans that are currently under consideration by Cardiff Council. And in these documents, Curtis Hall Limited say that the campus will support cloud computing, AI, digital services and secure data storage. But what does that actually mean? Hi Liv, how are you?
Hi Megan, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. So Liv, we're going to go back to basics for a second. What is a data centre? What do they do? And do we actually need them?
So data centres are essentially huge, vast halls full of thousands and thousands and probably thousands of racks of like powerful computers known as servers that are essentially processing the data, kind of enabling services that we use constantly on a day-to-day basis, whether it's, checking our emails, being able to access our emails, files, storage, photos, music, enabling us to do all of that round the clock.
Right, so what I'm learning here is that every time we ask ChatGPT a question, we stream a film, save a photo to the cloud, or even join a Teams call, something has to happen here in the real physical world, in a data center. Now, you might be watching this on YouTube, and this video is stored somewhere in a great big Google server. This is cloud storage, our video, our data, stored online. And here's something I didn't know until looking into the plans at Llanrumney. The cloud lives in or on more than 10,000 physical data centers around the world. But who controls them? Well, the big players in this field tend to be huge tech companies that you'll definitely have heard of. Amazon Web Services, Microsoft, Google, to name but a few.
A lot of what they are there to provide is so-called cloud computing services. So that's stuff that is commonly referred to being like when your data's in the cloud, it's actually probably in a data center on one of these computers. In the industry, like the cloud is constantly kind of referred to as actually just someone else's computer.
What I'm hearing there is that these data centers are exceptionally important to us and the way that we live our lives. Like, how important are they?
Well, they're so important. The government in the UK actually designated them critical national infrastructure, which is certification that it reserves for, say, like water, utilities, energy companies. Essentially means that in the event of kind of an emergency, say a cyber attack, they would get kind of immediate support.
This happened in 2024, meaning that data centres are considered as important to the UK as things like the NHS and the national grid. This label, critical national infrastructure, it might sound a bit jargony, but it is important because if something went wrong, say a period of extreme weather, these data centres would be prioritised. They'd get help quickly to keep them up and running. So if plans here are approved, this could join the more than 500 data centres already up and running in the UK. And for lots of people, development is a good thing. It could bring jobs, improve local infrastructure. It might even attract new businesses. I reached out to the Cardiff and Vale University Health Board, the people that fund this park and ride, and they did acknowledge that this is an essential transport link for their patients and their staff. At the moment, there's no clear plan B, but they said they're working on finding an alternative, suitable location. Cardiff Council also said that they're working with the Health Board to find that space if the plans go ahead. Now, you might not know this, but the number of data centres is only going to go up in the next few years. Cardiff is by no means a one-off. Plans for data centres are being made across the UK. Now, the vast majority of these centres will be in London and neighbouring counties. We're expecting 9 here in Wales, 5 in Greater Manchester, 1 in Scotland, and then others dotted around the country. And while these are just estimations based on planning documents, meaning that the numbers could change, one thing that is clear is that there is political will in the UK to build data centres.
Thank you for giving up your time this morning to be with us for this announcement. We wanted to do the announcement here because this is an announcement of 2 major projects, but it's more than that. It's an announcement about your future. That's the former Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer announcing AI growth zones. Wales has 2, one in the south and one in the north. Since then, the UK has got a new Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, and he's created a brand new cabinet role, Minister for Artificial Intelligence. And the man who's filled this position is actually a Welsh MP, Kanishka Narayan. We reached out to Minister Narayan for an interview. He was unavailable, but he and his team did send us a statement in which they said that the growing use of AI meant that more data centres are needed to meet demand. When we asked them about the environment, they said that this sector operates under the Climate Change Agreement, which effectively means that operators are encouraged to take up energy-efficient measures. They added that by building unprecedented amounts of clean power, the UK will enable the construction and development of these centres. And here's the other thing. They explained that this infrastructure will attract investment and create new jobs, something that people in the tech industry are pretty pleased about.
If you think back to Wales's sort of past, we've moved from the start of the 20th century where Cardiff and Barry exporting slate, steel, coal to the rest of the world. We're the fastest growing cities in the world, you know. So Wales had an industrial heyday, shall we say, and then gradual decline. We saw the closure of the coal fields, the decline of the steel industry. Now, we are in transition now, and to my mind, this is why there's such an exponential opportunity here, is because this could be the new frontier technology. In the same way that coal and steel were at the forefront of industrial transformation, AI, data centers are going to be at the forefront of the new industrial revolution, which we're in the middle of now. I think there's an opportunity for Wales to sort of almost to reimagine itself, to reinvent itself.
So if Mark is right and we're in the middle of a new industrial revolution, what does it look like for our communities in the UK? Well, maybe we've got something to learn from America, where things are moving quickly.
Hi, Nathalie. Thank you so much for making time for me.
Hi, thank you for having me.
This is Nathalie, a BBC journalist based in New York. She's been investigating data centers for quite some time.
So they're being built across the US. A lot of them are concentrated in the Midwest, and that's for a very specific reason. The Midwest has a lot of space. Essentially, what you need for a data center is just continuous land that you can use for cheap. You need cheap electricity, you need lots of water, so companies can tap into municipal water sources. It's much easier to do that in rural areas than in urban areas. So they're taking advantage of all these different factors to build these huge, almost cities, if you want to put it that way, of data centers. And I say cities because, there's several football fields large. These are not small little buildings. They're entire campuses, is maybe a better word.
Nathalie has interviewed people across the country about the impact that data centers are having on local communities.
The water won't come through the water lines to fill the toilet tank, so I have to fill it with a bucket of water. It's plugged with sediment.
So we visited Beverly in Georgia last June, and she retired. She used to live in a big city, and she bought a house in a small town called Mansfield in 2016. And she bought it before the data center was constructed. Then it popped up right in front of her house. I mean, just like it's a few yards away. And her dream home, as she told us, turned into her nightmare. And essentially, when she walks out of her home, just to give you a sense of how close it is, she sees the data center right in front. She hears it, the beeping, the noises, the construction. That construction is where the problems, or is when the problems started. When they started building the data center, she went from normal, happy life to not having any more water. And she thinks that her water supply has been clogged. And so now she has to use water bottles to flush her toilet, to take a shower, to cook her food. There is a little bit of water coming out of her taps, but it's all brown, it's murky. So essentially she has no way of having any type of clean water enter her home. And it's been the case for a while. I mean, Meta says that the data center and her water problems are just not connected. The company actually commissioned its own independent groundwater study, and it concluded that the operations did, and I quote, not adversely affect groundwater conditions in the area. And Meta says that being a good neighbor is a priority, but any links that she has made, that Beverly has made, between the Meta data center and her water are just, it's not true. But the problem persists. And since then, she's been in this direct standoff with Meta, one of the biggest companies in the world. And she described it as, it's kind of like a David and Goliath situation. What do you do when you don't have any more water? You can't live your life normally. You've spent all your money on your dream home, but essentially you just can't live in it anymore. And your adversary, the company that you're fighting, has way more money than you. So what do you do? And she doesn't really know what the answer is to that.
In the US, the politicians are getting involved too. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, also known as AOC, a congresswoman representing New York, went to meet Beverly in Georgia.
This is the current drinking water in Morgan County, Georgia. right after a data center was constructed, the metadata center was constructed. The only difference between the clean water and this was that data center. I have another one as well. So this wasn't just one well. These wasn't just one family's situation. This is what the drinking water now looks like.
One study estimates that AI-driven data centers could consume 1.7 trillion gallons of water globally by 2027. Now, the key word here is could, because it's all based on calculations, but it is important.
A lot of water is used to cool down the data centers and those servers because they get really hot. But actually, when I was looking into this, I was quite surprised by how little data centers use compared to how much we use at home. But obviously, that doesn't mean that it's not a valid concern. We know that we've had extremely hot summer, probably the hottest on record, and there's drought in most of England and across Wales. And every drop counts. So I think when we're looking at the future, when there'll be more and more data centers going up, it's absolutely valid to be worried about that water usage, scarcity of water, and how exactly will that be managed in the future.
And a theme, Georgina, that comes up time and time again is noise.
I looked it up at how much noise is produced in the US, and one of the estimates is that a data center can make between 50 and 60 decibels for nearby homes. That's probably the same as hearing a road near your house. And I think although people should, it's valid that they're worried about noise levels, I think you have to probably offset those concerns a bit with the reality that it's probably like living near a big shopping centre or a motorway perhaps, and that is in some ways part of modern life. I think where it would get concerning is, one data centre might not produce that much noise, but if you start to have clusters of them, 2, 3, 4, 5, or even in the US, they can get up to hundreds, that would produce a lot more noise.
Another theme that comes up is energy consumption and the sort of strain that could potentially put on our national grid.
Absolutely. So there's a lot of worries that these data centers use a lot of power, and the use of that will contribute further to climate change, because if that power comes from fossil fuels, that all contributes to global warming. At the moment, we know that data centers are responsible for 6% of electricity use in the UK. That is only going to increase as we have more and more data centers. There have been people concerned about that increasing our household bills. Obviously, if there's more demand for something, that can increase the prices. But I think it's really hard to pin down the exact cause of price rises, and there's a lot going on in the rest of the world at the moment. There's the war in Iran, the blockage of shipping routes affecting oil. So I think it's actually really difficult to say that with certainty that household energy prices are going up because of data centers.
And of course, when you build anything, not just a data center, there are sometimes consequences for the local environment with regards to wildlife.
Absolutely. It's one of the main concerns, that what happens when you build a data center? How does that impact the environment and the wildlife? Are you going to be bulldozing trees in order to build it? What about fields and crops? There's concerns about, are you going to be displacing wildlife, animals, squirrels, badgers, all this nature that we love in the UK? What's going to happen to that when you keep building these sites? Britain is already a nature depleted country, so we're going to be further affecting that. And there's also worries about food production. So if you're turning agricultural fields into places for data centres, what happens to those crops?
These environmental impacts are something people are already really worried about, and they want the government to be thinking about them too.
At Friends of the Earth, we're calling for a stop to new data centres. We're calling for that unless and until we have a clear plan from the government on exactly what it is we need all of these new data centres for and how many of them we need. We're asking for that pause until there are clear rules set out on how much energy and water data centres can use to make sure they're not sucking up our much needed renewables and our clean water. And we need an idea of how now and in the future government are going to determine the individual and the joint impact of all these data centres on the environment, on communities, on nature.
As with so many news stories that we cover, data centres are complicated. Yes, they're emotive, and yes, they get people talking, but there's no getting away from the fact that we are using them.
A very senior figure in the industry actually said that because of AI, the whole way we live our lives is going to change more in the next 6 months than it has in the previous 10 years. And that sort of brought it home to me that, like it or loathe it, we have to live with it and have to come to terms with it. And of course, AI is the thing that data centers are going to end up actually providing for us. If we haven't got the data centers, we haven't got access to that AI. So I think they're I won't call them a necessary evil, but they are a means to an end, if you like.
It's August 2026 and I'm at the site of the Cardiff East Park and Ride, or at least at the fence. For now, it is still a car park, but it could soon be a data centre. Councillors are due to decide in the next couple of weeks. But for now, a bus leaves this site every 20 minutes to take patients to the Heath. That's 7 minutes door to door. Other countries have started asking these buildings to give something back. Ireland won't plug one into the grid unless it brings its own power. Germany makes new data centres reuse a share of the energy they burn. And France makes the big ones fit heat recovery. So instead of that heat going into the sky, it can be sent somewhere useful. So if plans here do go ahead, data that you own might end up on the other side of that fence. What do you think about that? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. We reached out to a few people for this film. A spokesperson for Cardiff Council said that the proposal will be assessed against relevant planning policies and material planning considerations before any decision is reached. They said they strongly encourage anyone with comments, concerns or views about the application to submit them through the formal planning consultation process, adding that because this is a live planning application relating to a private development, it would be inappropriate to comment further. Meanwhile, the Welsh Government said they recognise that data centres are energy intensive. As demand for digital infrastructure grows, they said it's important that new developments make use of technologies and approaches that minimise energy and resource consumption. They added that they're working with partners to ensure that the benefits of any investment are felt by businesses, communities and the wider Welsh economy. The UK government said many new data centres are already using advanced cooling systems that significantly reduce water consumption, adding that planning applications are required to consider the impact on communities and the environment.